Good evening. This is Kathy Beatty with Divorce Support Anonymous, welcoming you to my Friday night broadcast. And tonight's topic are 5 ways to save money going through divorce. And so we are going to discuss some good tips for you that are going to be helpful to give you an opportunity to kind of minimize the damage, which is what I always say as I'm working with people going through divorce. How do we minimize the damage? And boy, is there financial damage. So I am not coming to you alone this evening. I have another expert with me. Mr. Peter Letzman is joining me again, attorney Peter Letzman, who has mediated thousands of cases. I always say to people I refer him to, he has mediated thousands. I have mediated hundreds. So he's kind of my go-to person. No, not kind of. He is my go-to person as we go through very difficult challenges, things that we've never seen before. And we always think that we have seen it all, right, Peter? But not always the case. So welcome, Peter.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy. And I really appreciate the topic that you have chosen for this evening, because I have seen cases where people have spent literally six figures of over 100,000, approaching $200,000 on a divorce, and probably not necessary. So what I think we want to do tonight is give you some hints on how not to spend needless money. Now, you're going to have to spend some money, and we're not going to try and make the lawyers rich here, but what we want to do is spend the minimum amount of money that really is necessary, but we still want to make sure that we get a good divorce, that we just don't skimp and not get to the full value of the divorce.
As if there were a good divorce, but there are ways in which you can make them more economical and efficient, right? More efficient.
Indeed.
Yeah. So fabulous. Let me throw out there a quick announcement before I go on, and that is May 20th, the next support groups begin. So please connect with me and we'll get that registration form to you. It is hybrid, it's online, and also in person if you're in the Grand Rapids area. So 5 ways to save you money going through divorce. Number 1 is get the workbook. This is a workbook that is going to help you prepare for seeing your attorney and also in mediation. And so this is going to help educate you so you're not jumping into this attorney-client relationship without having some knowledge. And within this workbook, there are several things. Number 1, should I have a divorce coach? Selecting your attorney. We're going to talk about that in just a few moments. What to expect with your first attorney meeting, premarital, why it matters, what to expect in mediation, your rights with an attorney and your rights in mediation are just some of the topics that we cover. And it's going to allow you to prepare to get all of your documents together, because there are a lot of documents, aren't there, Peter?
There indeed are. And let me just add a little bit of advice. The book is free, and I have given the book. I hate to, maybe we did not get Kathy the royalty that she deserves for the book, but the book is valuable for really 2 reasons. One is it prepares you for the divorce, the battle that might be coming in the future. We're always afraid of what we don't know. Here, Kathy explains to you in great detail as to what is going to come in the future. And then the other aspect of the book is Kathy lays out things that need to be done and things that you can do yourself to save money. Save is not the right word for me to use here, is not to spend money uselessly. There are techniques that you can do to avoid spending that money. So literally everybody going through a divorce, if it's going to be a contested divorce, and even if it's not contested, it teaches you what are some of the procedural matters that you will go through, literally from the complaint that's filed at the beginning. She has a copy of the complaint and she carries it through to the end. So get the book, get the book, get the book.
Yeah, it just upon request, and all I need is your email address, and I don't follow anyone after I receive your email address. You won't get more information or more emails from me. So, yes, get the book. It is going to help you because you're living in a world, you're jumping into a world you've never been into before. And it's very complicated. And on top of that, you don't have your mental capacities that you once had because you're going through the trauma of divorce. So, all the help that you can get is going to be really um, save you money.
Yeah,
Save you money.
most of us really don't think well while we're under stress. So this is a guideline, a checklist that helps you under these stressful days.
Thank you, Peter. Point number 2 is get a good attorney. An expense does not always equate to a better attorney. Peter, speak to us about how do you get a good attorney?
Well, don't let money be your guide. You think if I'm going to get a $600 an hour attorney, I'm really going to be able to win this divorce. Well, maybe not. Maybe all you're going to do is get a big bill at the end of the month or at the end of the divorce, and you may have gotten the same deal that the person, let's say, that has gotten a $300 an hour, or maybe even less than $300 an hour attorney. And I've seen what can I say, the more frugal, the cheaper attorneys beating the pants off of the more expensive attorneys. That happens quite frequently. But the first thing you have to do is you have to pick an attorney that you're comfortable with, that will respond to you, that knows the lay of the land, and who will perform for you. That's the first thing. And once we identify that, then maybe shop around other attorneys who might be as good as your first choice, but might be a little bit cheaper. Maybe not. We want to be careful about spending money, of course, but that's not the place where you're going to cut. And what do they say? Is we send people to the moon on the lowest bid. The lowest. Don't get your divorce, or don't hire your attorney just on the lowest bid. Money is an important factor in these times, but quality of representation trumps money all the time. And in the long run, you should be able to save money by having, and sometimes the cheap attorneys will drag out we've seen that happen, where the attorney just drag it out, and maybe it's the low number, $300, but a 1 hour job takes 3 hours, and in the end you're paying more. So be careful and check the bills too, by the way.
Yeah. Great words of wisdom, Peter. And I know, again, you're in a world you've never been in before, and it's like, I wouldn't even know what to say. And so this book does give you some questions to ask. And many attorneys, not all, but many, will give you the first consult at no cost, at no charge. So some of the questions that you would ask the attorney when you meet them for the first time is, and Peter, feel free to comment as I rattle through these, what is the best way to communicate with you, and how quickly should I get a response?
Yeah, I think that's crucial. Some attorneys will appreciate the telephone call, but that really, in most situations nowadays, you would have to wait for the attorney to get out of court, finish the deposition, and to return the call. If you send them an email or a text message, I like emails because it's a good way of keeping track of what the correspondence are between you and your attorney. If things just a good way of doing that, and I do that at the end of the day when I come back from the court or when I finish a mediation or so on. I go through my emails and answer my emails. Now, do I answer them every night? Not necessarily. You know, there are occasions when there are activities and I shouldn't be answering emails. But for sure, you should be able to get an answer within 24 hours. And if the attorney is somehow tied up or so on, at least you should get a response from the office, from the secretary, from the paralegal, saying that the attorney will be back.
And that's working with your attorney. But as the key questions to ask is, how quickly can I plan on a response? And boy, I wish it was always 24 hours from the experiences that I have had. Second question in here, what is your retainer? And if it's not used, is it refunded? That can be a big issue for you depending on how much the retainer is. And the retainer is always a good chunk of money.
Yeah. And Kathy, I'm saying that the retainer, some attorneys say, well, I want $3,000 up front and then the clock will start running. Well, you know, the clock is running on that $3,000. It's diminishing that $3,000. The $3,000 retainer is not just a finder's fee for that attorney. It should not be a finder's fee. And the rates, when we talk about rates, they vary all over the place. Each attorney is a little bit different. Some people will bill you at the end of the month, at the end of the trial, or so on. But do have something in writing which clearly delineates what the fees are going to be, because you don't want to have some surprise at the end of the litigation that you just didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
And that's I think one of the overall comments about dealing with any business situation. Make sure it's clear. If it's clear, then you know what your obligations are. No surprise, and you will be able to save some money.
Have it in writing, and then you'll need another attorney to have to interpret it for you, right? No, I'm kidding. Okay. I would ask, the next question to ask them is, what is your view on mediation? So if you have a attorney who's rushing you or wanting to take you to court, realize that that's where they make their most money. So you want an attorney that's going to be reasonable and allow for mediation.
Well, not only reasonable, I think that's perhaps one of the initial questions you may want to ask your attorney in terms of what his normal procedure is with the divorce strategies or the divorce protocol. I'm a firm believer of mediation because you save money. If you gear up for court, it's just going to cost you a whole lot of money. But then again, like I said, you can drag out mediation also. If you're not properly prepared for it, you know, you adjourn the mediation to gather some evidence, some documents or so on, which Kathy talks about in her book. She says, get all those documents at the beginning so you don't have these delays, and delays will cost money. There's another saving to avoid delays.
Absolutely. If you fill out the workbook, I always like to use the scenario that if you just jump into an attorney's office, you're going to spend your first hour just telling him the story, him or her. And then the next hour, you're going to spend talking about all the documents that you need to get together. What I love about the workbook is you've got all that done. So you walk in the door and you say, okay, let's get to work. So,
I have clients who have come in to see me, and I've seen this in other situations. they want to unload. They want to tell the attorney about how right they are, how much they've been hurt. Well, yeah, do give yourself 5 minutes to tell the attorney about how angry you are, how sad you are. Kick his desk a little bit, express your frustrations, your anger, whatever emotion you have. And then after 4 minutes and 59 seconds of venting, go and say, all right, now it's time. Let's go to work. Let's get this show on the road.
Yep, that's what your therapist is for, and that's what your support group is for. It's not what your attorney is for.
Not at $600 an hour.
No, for sure. For sure. So, point number 3, learn what you can about the process. So, you can go through Google, you can go through a lot of YouTube videos are out there of what the divorce process looks like. And consider this while you're watching, while you're Googling, while you're working and figuring out the process, you're actually paying yourself because now you are more prepared and more knowledgeable to use the attorney and to use the court process. So there are so many things you can learn yourself, or hire a divorce coach who's going to guide you through this at a fraction of what an attorney would.
Kathy, the biggest secret, and I don't know why it is a secret, is go to the court on divorce day. You know, you can check with the court clerk and say, well, when are they going to try a case? When are they going to have some demotion? When is the domestic docket in a particular court? Go down there and see what happens. See how your judge treats the people. And speaking of that, not only find out how and what happens in the courtroom, that'll be a good advantage, and then practice with your attorney. If you are called on the stand, if it's necessary, then role play. Mimic the things that you have learned in the court. You know, avoid the bad stuff, do the good stuff. But yeah, that's the best learning experiences, by going to the court itself.
And it will only,
courtrooms are open.
Yeah, it will only cost you parking. That's all it will cost you. And you will gain a lot of experience. I love that, Peter. And you're right. It's so often overlooked. It's going to help you understand, like Peter said, the judge, how they behave, and the cases that go before them, and what that whole process is going to end up looking like. So, such important.
If you really want to be sneaky, but ethical, is see when the opposition's attorney, when your spouse is, when the is trying a case or doing something, is arguing a motion. If you can see what the opposition is doing, boy, that's like scouting a basketball game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. However, you never know how an attorney, an opposing attorney, is going to behave, because they could throw some sneaky things at you. But yeah, if you have the wherewithal and the energy to do that, that would be an incredible strategy to do. But point is, learn what you can learn, and without having those people that you have to pay educate yourself as much as possible. There's so much you will not grasp, you will not understand, but it will give you a background to help you understand further. So, number 4, formulate your questions ahead of time. As you are going in to meet with your attorney, whether it's the first time or it's the 15th time, have your goals and intentions and your questions ready. That's so you don't get in there and your attorney leads everything and you just kind of walk out of there in a daze and don't quite understand everything that he said. But if you go in with your question, these are the questions that I need to know, that is going to help you use your attorney more efficiently. And that's what we're all about, is efficiency of using your attorney.
Well, you know, we do that in another profession. When you go to the doctor, you've got a list of things, you know, my foot hurts, my toe hurts, and so on. And most doctors now nowadays will give you a written summary of what has happened at your office visit, the prescriptions, the procedures, and so on. Well, you're not going to get a written summary from your attorney. Well, you can ask for one, but that's again going to cost you money. But be prepared, as Kathy says, and I would even say write out your questions. That's why legal pads were invented. And yellow legal pads are not a monopoly of attorneys. You can get one yourself and write down those questions and then write down the answers. So if
Yes.
you are under stress and then you can look at the questions as you get home the next day or so on. And just remember this process is an emotional, stressful process, and we want to have those techniques that we possibly can to survive that. And you want to know as much as possible about the process. You don't want to walk out of that office saying, oh, gee, I wish I would have asked him this, I would have asked him that. If you have your list of questions, you'll be able to cover all of the necessary questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Absolutely. That's what I meant, was to write it down. But you're right. Not only the questions, but leave room for the answers so you can write them down. Because yes, your brain is not functioning because it is in trauma. And so everything you can do to help support yourself is just vital. Point number 5, be direct. Figure out what it is that you want. It's not your attorney's job to help you figure out what you want. That's why in the workbook, again, there are different forms of things. And I always say this with the folks in my groups as well. If you don't have the workbook, just get a sheet of paper, put 3 columns. The first column, these are the things that are vitally important to me. And we're talking personal property at this point. And the middle column is those things you're ambivalent about. If I get the mower, great. If I don't, I'll just get another one. It's no big deal. Third column, what are those things you do not want? And so those things are things that you might use for leverage when you are in mediation. But it also helps you figure out what it is that you want and what's important to you. Because when you're at the throes of the mediation, it's really difficult for you to prioritize everything that's important to you. Again, these are going to help you help yourself in figuring this out. And if you just wondering, I don't know what I want, I don't know, should I keep the house? I don't know, get it clear in your mind. And you may need help with this. You may need a divorce coach or a friend to help you clarify what is important to you.
I would go a little bit further. I like your list of personal property. What are the absolute items that I want? Grandfather clock, that's very important to me. But I think I would go a little bit further, Kathy, in saying, out of the whole marriage, what do I want?
Yes.
So that you can bring that wish list, and it starts out as a wish list to your attorney. I want the house, I want the car, I want the cottage, I want the sailboat, I want my husband to do community service for 2 years after the divorce. Well, the attorney is going to go through that list and saying, this is a possibility, this is absolutely, you're entitled to this. And no, I'm sorry, we do not punishing husbands is not one of the parts of the divorce process, and we have to take that off. We're not even going to insult the judge by bringing that up. And you want to be clear. Yeah, you can ask for it, but be clear that you understand when your attorney says, that's illegal. We can't do that. And then be clear on those things. Well, that's a gamble. We don't know. The judge might go for it, might not go for it. And again, here's where mediation comes in. You remove that risk that you have, but do start out with your wish list, and then, but make sure that with that list that there's clear communications with your attorney. Sometimes your attorney may overpromise also, so be careful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, in every area. That includes your retirement, the house, as was mentioned, the assets. You may decide, you know what, she can have more of the equity in the home, but don't touch my retirement. There are ways to work that, but you have to decide, okay, the house is more important to me, or the retirement's more important to me. So it's your responsibility to figure out what those things are. You will have guidance from your attorney, but you should know ahead of time of what's important to you. And I know many of you, and I've been with many of you, who just throw up their hands and say, just forget it. Just forget it. I'm not going to fight. It's like, no, you are going to fight. You have to stand up for yourself. And one of the steps in that is figuring out what it is that you want.
Kathy, if I may just ask or comment on that, don't give up. Remember the words of Winston Churchill: never give up, never give up, never give up. Because you are fighting for perhaps your children, your children's future, your own future, your own well-being, your own. Half of the women in America after divorce live under the poverty level or line.
Mhm.
So divorce can be a very, what can I say, negative impact on the finances. So protect your finances, get everything that you're entitled to. And if you feel frustrated, that's why you hire your attorneys, your advisor and your counselor. And really, he is the one who has to fight for your assets. You can just say, this is, I this is what I would like, and I don't want to give up on it. And you can just sit back, let him do all the fighting,
Mhm.
and just continue to hold the course. I want 50%. I want 50. I'm not going to give, especially if he advises you that you're entitled to it.
Right. Yeah. And typically in the state of Michigan, it's geared toward 50% division of assets, 50%. But again, it needs to be clear to you what it is that you want. And again, maybe you need a divorce coach. Maybe you need a friend to sit down with you and just kind of go through everything that you have, the assets. And yeah, there's so much here. It's difficult to spend a half an hour and putting it all out here. But these are just 5 tips for you to consider, to think about, 5 ways to save you money, because divorce, no matter how amicable it is, divorce is very expensive. And I would much rather see you put that money that you saved into your child's 529 account or your own savings account for your future, instead of paying it to the attorney. So my goal is always, how do we use the attorney efficiently? Peter, you've been amazing as usual. So thank you very much.
And folks out there, get the book. Get the book. It's free. Get the book.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your words of wisdom and for being with me this evening, Friday evening. Let me just throw out a couple I've used this the past 3 weeks, I think, but that's okay. I'll use it again tonight, because as you're going through this process, you need all the wisdom you can get, all the discernment that you can get. And this is a promise from God in his word, that if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. And you certainly lack wisdom in this legal area, I'm sure, unless you're an attorney yourself. Let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. So keep in mind that the true wisdom comes from the Spirit of God himself, for the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. And boy, that's what we need, isn't it, Peter? Is wisdom and understanding.
Especially at this time when we can't generate it ourselves. We need help from others. And Kathy, as you say, you need your attorney, of course. You need your spiritual support advisor, you need just your emotional support and group. It's
Mhm.
time to ask for help.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. And that's hard for a lot of us, but this is the time to do it. Thank you all for being with me this evening. Oh, I have comments. I wasn't even. Oh, thank you, Stephanie. Loving the questions. Great discussion. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Peter, for joining me tonight on this very important topic of 5 ways to save you money going through divorce. So this is Kathy Beatty, and there is Peter Letzman, and I am with you all the way, walking through the trauma of divorce and after the trauma of divorce. Have a good evening.